Well, the people have spoken, and they've done so with their wallets, as they have shown us they are more willing to pay for a film with its star being a criminal and being part of the defunct Snyderverse in the DC universe, in that Ezra Miller's The Flash has made more money on its opening day than The Marvels. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idol, and I saw The Marvels today. I didn't pay to see it because, I have standards. In fact, I find anybody who is in this sort of anti-woke space that is paying to see it being hypocritical and disingenuous when you want to talk about how you want to see Disney fail, see Disney lose money, and then you contribute to the problem just so you can hate watch the film. I think that's a bit hypocritical, but that's just me. So when I say I watched it, I didn't pay to see it because there's plenty of ways to see films without having to actually give Disney money, but I digress. Either way, an article came out talking about how much Marvels has actually lost on its opening day, and let me tell you, I wasn't expecting it to have worse numbers than The Flash, one of the biggest bombs of 2023, but that's what happened. So let's get into the article. Before we do, hit the subscribe button. I am trying to get to the 2,000 subscriber mark before the end of the year, and with just over 200 subscribers to go, we're looking real doable. So hit the button and let's get into this article, shall we? The Marvels crashes to Earth with a Thursday night box office of just $6.5 million, performs even worse than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and The Flash. And what a nice good looking photo of Brie here. Like that's about what I'd expect from a headline like this. And from a headline, let's be real, this is bounding into comics. And I say all the time, they're just the right-wing version of the Mary Sue or Kotaku or Polygon or anything to that effect. So, I do want people reporting on how poorly this movie is doing, but I want them doing it with honesty and integrity. So there might be some things to correct here in this article. We'll see. Just because I usually have some values that align with theirs doesn't mean I care for how they report stuff. I want some honesty and some integrity in our reporting, and bounding into comics has just as much journalistic integrity as Kotaku, in my opinion. But that being said, let's see what they got to say. In an outcome that all but the franchise's most staunch defenders / slop consumers could have predicted, The Marvels is shaping up to be but the latest in the studio's ongoing streak of financial misses, as the space-based sequel has managed to pull in even less at the box office on its Thursday night than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania or their rival DC's absolutely disastrous The Flash. Look, The Flash was poised to have a massive success. I don't know if you guys remember, news travels quick, there's a lot going on, bing bang boom, but The Flash was set to just destroy at the box office, to dominate the summer blockbuster box office, and it didn't. The projections were $120 million opening weekend, and it made about half of that, $60 million in its opening weekend. So to say that The Marvels is tracking behind The Flash is crazy. Now, that being said, I've not seen The Flash. I can't speak to The Flash. What I will say is, I have a hard time believing The Marvels is worse. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not defending the film. It wasn't good by any stretch of the imagination. It also, believe it or not, was not the worst MCU film. I'm going to be 100% honest. That being said, no, I can't actually believe that The Marvels is worse than The Flash. I would need to see The Flash to accurately compare the two, but hey, at least The Marvels is shorter, only being about an hour and 45 minutes long. That makes it an hour less than The Flash, so that's gotta count for something, right? Per reports from both Deadline and Variety, the Brie Larson, Tiana Paris, and Iman Vellani-led team-up film managed to snag just $6.5 million in ticket sales. Disney reports the number at a slightly higher total of $6.6 million in its preview night premiere. Now, to be fair, Disney, we're used to them lying and fudging the numbers, so if that's what they're doing here, at least they're doing it in a much more believable manner. 6.5 to 6.6. I expected Disney to say something like 7.4 million or something ridiculous like that. So you know what? If Disney's gonna lie, at least make it believable. I can respect that from a large conglomeration that controls the world and wants to bend them to their ideological will. As such, The Marvels will officially enter the history books with the third lowest preview night performance of the entire MCU. It's the first place finish, only being undercut by the first Ant-Man, which had a 6.4 opening million. By the way, Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man, is my favorite solo movie in the MCU. It is a tie between that and the very first Thor film. So to show you where my head is at when it comes to superhero movies, I genuinely do like the first Ant-Man film. I also am not a big MCU guy. In fact, I haven't been a big MCU guy since a bit into Phase 3. I saw Infinity War, I saw Endgame, and I liked Infinity War. Endgame, even out the gate, I thought kind of sucked. It's got a few good scenes, but as a whole, it wasn't a good movie from the moment it came out, and I was attacked pretty heavily for saying that. So at the end of the day, the point is, you know where I stand, saying that I'm a fan of Ant-Man and the first Thor. But the fact that, the first Ant-Man, when I saw it, And I saw it at the $2 theater, after movies have been out for a few weeks, you get a discounted rate because no one was going to see this. I snagged a deal on seeing it. And, so I can imagine it had a 6.4 million. Oh, that being said, 6.4 million opening in like 2016, also a little bit different than nowadays when you adjust for inflation. That being said, let's go on with the article. So, whose success at the time was hampered by the hero's relative obscurity in the public consciousness, and The Incredible Hulk, which had a $2 million opening, which premiered at a time when the preview showings began at midnight on Friday nights, rather than the current standard of 3 p.m. on Thursday afternoons. And that does make a massive difference. And once again, $2 million in, what was it, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. I believe 2008 is when the Hulk came out. $2 million in 2008 is also very different than what $2 million would be now. And also, like the article says, 3 p.m. on Thursdays is very different than debuting at midnight, actual midnight releases. So when you adjust for inflation and actually take those into account, no, the Marvels is doing worse than either Ant-Man or The Incredible Hulk. Additionally, the film will also take home the title of Marvel's worst performing preview night of 2023, being left in the dust by the 17.5 million Thursday night box offices enjoyed by both Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, I've not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania as well. Again, I don't like superhero movies all that much. As an OG comic book fan, I think most superhero movies have kind of been trash, MCU or not, so I didn't watch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I did watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3 once it came out on streaming, and it was pretty alright. It was fair. Glad I didn't pay to see it, but also glad I did end up seeing it in general. You know what I mean? Perhaps the most damning of Marvel's latest outing is the fact that his preview night box office failed to surpass even that of the aforementioned The Flash. Now remember when everyone was dogging on the Snyderverse. From the moment Man of Steel came out, there were detractors. We were making fun of how, they wanted to catch up to Marvel, how the Snyderverse could never be what Marvel is. Me, being a Zack Snyder apologist, and who completely acknowledges most of those movies aren't good, but I do still enjoy them. It was kind of hard being a Snyder fan because I genuinely think that those movies are better than a lot of the MCU films, and I'd happily break down why, but that's not, this is the time or place for that. The point is, by the time The Flash came out, man, the Snyderverse was dead. Everyone knew it was dead. Not only was Ezra Miller going through the unparalleled amount of legal troubles in the public eye for an actor, but also everyone knew that movie wouldn't go anywhere because the Snyderverse was being rebooted by James Gunn. It had everything working against it, and still it managed to do better than the Marvels. That is quite frankly almost a feat in and of itself. So, a more fair comparison point is both films were released amidst the failing interest in superhero films, tracked preview night starting at 3 p.m., and were subject to massive scrutiny ahead of their premieres. The Flash, even with star Ezra Miller's numerous crimes being well within the realm of public knowledge at the time, managed to nearly double the Marvel's preview night box office, ending the night with a total of 9.7 million. So when you round up, you get the Flash opening day getting $10 million and the Marvel getting 7. Like, that is a massive difference. Now, I will say, to the Flash's credit, there is, they talk about how it's a fair comparison point. There is one unfair comparison point here. The Flash was a summer blockbuster. It came out at peak movie-going season. So, the Marvel's coming out in November after being delayed multiple times, having all these reshoots, and now not in peak season either. Yeah, I think that will kind of taper things in the Flash's favor in probably a pretty notable way. Most people aren't just taking their kids, for example, even to a 3 p.m. showing on Thursday right after school to see the Marvels. They got homework. People have regular work. Kids have school the next day. So I think that might impact stuff a little bit, but even so, $3 million, that's a pretty hefty difference. And I can't imagine, like I said earlier, The Flash actually being a better movie than the Marvels, despite the Marvels not being that good. So, further, much to the chagrin of the Disney and Marvel marketing machines, this opening night disinterest cannot even remotely begin to be blamed on sexism. According to polls conducted by the audience measurement company ComScore, following various screenings and obtained by Deadline, the Marvels' initial viewership was made up of 63% men, 45% of which were over the age of 25, and 24% women over the age of 25. And you want to know why that is? Because despite what all these shill articles and outlets will try and tell you, comic book movies are mostly geared towards men, and they should be geared towards men, because that's who go to see them, is men. Now, I'm not saying women don't like comic book movies. Yes, clearly you got women that love the MCU, and women who are overly obsessed with Harley Quinn despite never reading a comic in their life, but the fact of the matter is, the majority of these films' audience are men. They've always been men, and there's nothing wrong with that. So when you have, 63% of men, 45% of which were over the age of 25, going and seeing the film and actually supporting it, it's gonna be real hard to blame men for the reason that the movie failed, when it looks like women, only 24% of which were over the age of 25, weren't going to see this movie. All these individuals that claim to be women on Twitter, X, talk about how the movie needs to succeed. It's time for a superhero female film. Like, where were you guys on opening day? Certainly you weren't at the box office. You were probably sitting there on X talking about how much you hate men, while men were actually going out and paying for your crappy product that you begged for so much that you won't actually support. And as a result of this underperformance, as noted by both trade outlets, the Marvel's opening weekend projections have fallen yet again. Whereas metrics just 9 days prior had the film closing out its opening weekend with roughly 45 to 50 million in ticket sales, the film is now tracking to end its first 4 days in theaters with just 40 million instead. And for those of you that don't remember, because news travels fast, bing bang boom, there's always something going on that you gotta pay attention to. This is about the 5th time, give or take, that the tracking has fallen for the Marvels, because if you remember, it was tracking about 2 months ago at 90 to 120 million, and then that fell to about 80 to 90 million. Alright, that's not good, but it's still, it's fine, it is what it is. Disney can recoup that. Then it fell to about 70 to 80 million. Okay, now things are getting worrisome. Then it fell again from 50 to 75 million. 50 to 75 million. Okay, now Disney's starting to sweat a little bit. But then it fell again to about 45 to 55 million, and now we're looking at 40 million. That has got to have Disney shaking in their bright yellow shoes. Now, to be fair, these projections can be wrong. Like I said earlier, The Flash was projected to have a $120 million opening, and it had like a $60 million, if I remember correctly. So you can't take these as a gospel, but it is a good baseline. And if the Marvels cracks 40 million and doesn't go any higher, your boy will be one happy camper. The Marvels is now playing in theaters. I love this. Give it its own little section to itself. The Marvels is now playing in theaters. In case anyone didn't catch the unimaginable amount of Beasty Boys, trailers that got us to hate that song, despite the fact that I love Intergalactic, but now I can't hear it without thinking of Brie Larson. Ugh. Yeah, all in all, I don't exactly know what Disney was expecting with this. I mean, it's a good thing that Dune wasn't in theaters. I think that Disney secretly pulled some strings behind the scenes to get Dune pushed out, and they had nothing to do with the writer's strike, because if Dune was in theaters, you'd see an even bigger drop-off, and Disney could not have that. So, we'll see what the final box office numbers are, probably Monday. I would wager Monday or Tuesday after, we get through the Sunday numbers, but I don't think it's looking good. Even if it cracks 55 million, that's still not looking good. I did not foresee this movie doing worse than The Flash on opening day, and that was one of, again, the biggest bombs of 2023. I didn't even consider comparing the two in my head. I was more thinking along the lines of comparing it to other Disney properties like The Little Mermaid, but no, that The Flash isn't a bad comparison. And yeah, I'll be surprised if this movie ends up making more than even The Little Mermaid, especially when you account for that massive budget and the fact that there's all those reshoots that probably aren't included in the budget, and obviously things like marketing and the cut that the theater takes for showing the film. This movie is doomed to fail, but I didn't realize it was doomed this bad. And again, as someone who's seen the film, it's not even the worst MCU film, and that's saying something. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X, where you can find me at BoltTheWord. And please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. I know it seems like I've turned into the Captain Marvel channel as of late, with that being like 3 of my last 5 uploads, but hopefully that will end soon, and we'll get back to other nerdy news. But let's be real, Captain Marvel is dominating the news cycle right now because of just how unprecedentedly bad this situation is going, and I definitely want to keep you guys up to date, and maybe you can let me know info on Twitter that'll keep me up to date if there's something I missed. But until then, check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon, and remember, it's all here in the nerdosphere, and this has been Words of Paradise.